I found this super interesting breakdown on Israel's fertility and their high birth rates. Let's read it together and see what's really going on. It's by More Births Again. I've actually read some of their articles before and made some videos. They're so good at actually getting the research down and making it kind of easy to understand and really bringing attention to this argument of depopulation and birth rates and how countries are tackling this or how societies are tackling this around the world. But let's get into it. Understanding High Israeli Fertility by More Births. This was written about a year ago, just to keep that in context, but it's still relevant. Israel is the only developed country in the world above replacement fertility. Understanding why is crucial for knowing how we can solve the low birth rate crisis, by Daniel Hess. I wonder if Daniel Hess is More Births. I haven't deep dived that far. Near the end of 2023, I was honored to be a guest in the home of a prominent rabbi in the DC area who had recently passed. I had a ceremony of mourning and remembrance, even though I'm not Jewish. Most of his family lives in Israel, and his granddaughter told me he had more than 100 descendants when he died. That's crazy. Can you imagine having over 100 descendants from just your bloodline? Like, that's not your counting your siblings' kids or like your cousins' kids. This is just you and your partner's children. And then having 100 descendants under that by the time you die. Like, that's unheard of, or I've never heard of that. But that seems like what goals should be. That's kind of like goal to have like 100 descendants. That was more than anyone else I knew of and speaks to the remarkable fertility of an unusual country. Israel's fertility and why it's so significant. There are 38 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. These are generally considered to be the most modern and developed nations. Of these, 37 have fertility that is below replacement level, and most are far below replacement. Only one advanced country, Israel, has above replacement fertility. So there are 38 countries in the OECD and 37 of them are all below fertility replacement. That's kind of crazy. This is like supposed to be the most modern, most well-off countries in the world, but I guess there's a correlation there. We can see in the chart here that Israel clearly has most kids per woman. Here it shows kids born per female for Israel, and then all the other OECD countries are listed here. Maybe not all of them, but a bunch of the other ones are listed here, and their replacement level starts from 1.8 and just goes down. With South Korea, for example, at 0. It says here 8. I think sometimes it's like 0.75 or something, some statistics say, of children born per female. As countries get richer, fertility usually falls, for reasons we all understand. Long education means more of the childbearing years are spent in school. Greater freedom and opportunity for women, the demands of work, the ability of birth control, and urbanization all contribute to low birth rates in advanced countries. We can see this everywhere, at least in the Western world. Education now, most people go for a master's degree, so that's 5 years of schooling after high school. It takes away a lot of as it says here, the childbearing years of women. And therefore, naturally, birth rates will fall because we have other priorities. Women, prioritize their exploration, the experiences of the world, be that, education, career, and other opportunities that are given to us. All of these descriptors apply to Israel as much as any country, yet somehow Israel manages to have a fertility around twice the OECD average, close to 3 births per woman. Israel is the only advanced country on earth with a population pyramid that shows growth. In every other, the pyramid is inverted, meaning that the country is decaying with time. So right here, this is a population pyramid, and it's quite healthy to see it actually look like a pyramid because you can see that there are more younger people in society being able to contribute and work and aid with productivity and producing a better economy for everybody. A lot of countries are slowly moving to the phase of having an inverted triangle, so like a lot of elderly people at the top and smaller working population, meaning that the smaller working population has to provide and work a lot harder to maintain the elderly. And because if you have a larger elderly population, as most of the OECD countries are having at the moment, or they're like steering in that direction, we can kind of forecast that that's what's going to happen. You're going to have a lot more weight on society to, ensure that, for example, the elderly are taken care of. Elderly people actually use the most resources in society, and they don't contribute in the same way. Like if we continue this trend of having fewer kids in our societies, who's going to be the ones solving these biggest problems? I just wanted to show some pictures of, let's see here, Japan, 2024 population. This is Japan's population pyramid. As you can see, there are more people from the ages of 50 up compared to the working population there. So Japan's population is turning into this inverted triangle. Same for, can we look here? France. Sorry, my thing is in German. France is a little bit more of a triangle, but it's like becoming more straight, narrow, as you can see. Spain the same, more so an inverted triangle. Let's see, the UK. I don't know what country this is. Germany, also an inverted triangle. So these are just some examples of the OECD countries that show a significant difference from Israel here. And that should be a little bit concerning. I recently wrote about the new baby money index, BMI, a substitute for GDP, which multiplies income by the square of fertility to give a measure of true national thriving. A successful nation has both present prosperity and is producing the next generation. That's an interesting way to measure a society's success, to ensure that higher prosperity, meaning higher income societies and more kids. I think that's a good way to measure that, or like that's an interesting approach. We're definitely interested in reading this article afterwards. On the combined measures of income and fertility, one nation is far ahead of the rest. Israel's score laps every other country in this index. High fertility countries usually have very low GDPs, and high GDP countries usually have very low birth rates. Israel is the only country in the world that does well in both categories. We need to understand what is different about Israel if we hope to turn our own plunging fertility around. Let's look at a range of factors. Israel and education. Israel is one of the most educated countries on earth, and majority of its citizens hold at least a college degree. High education is usually associated with low fertility, so Israel is unusual in this regard. Canada, the most educated country, total fertility rate of just 1.5 births per woman. Every country on the list below, other than Israel, suffers from a low birth rates. 10 most educated countries. So as we can see here, as of 2022, Canada was the top most educated with 63%. Japan, Israel falls 6th or 7th. They fall 7th, and yeah, as you can see, more than half of their population is educated or has a college degree. And yeah, it said here Canada has 1.2 birth rates per woman as the most educated country in the world. Israel's housing situation. Both high housing prices and urbanization are associated with lower birth rates, a pattern that I have documented extensively and which is widely accepted in demography. Yet Israel is both dense and extremely expensive. Housing costs more per square foot in Israel than in any country in Europe. Yet Israel's fertility is far higher than that of any European country. I actually found this picture really interesting. It says average transaction price of a new dwelling in selected countries. So a new dwelling is a new home, so one that's been like newly built, never rented out, owned by anybody else. It's like a brand new house. And you can see here the euro price is per property per square meter. So in Germany it's 4.8 thousand euros. You can see in Greece it's like 1.3 thousand euros, Spain 2.6, United Kingdom 3.9, and Israel to buy a house would cost you 5.7 thousand euros approximately per square meter. So it's significantly higher than majority of European countries. Yet this is evidence that despite a really expensive housing market, this isn't the only factor why people don't have kids, because as we can see here, Israel has almost double as many kids as any other European country. So it's not affecting their fertility rates, the housing, even despite that the housing market is extremely concentrated in one area, and due to the fact that Israel is so small and has a fairly large population, I think they're like 10 million people, yet their prices are so high. War, nationalism, and external threats. One theory says that Israel has high fertility because it's threatened by enemies. That may be true to an extent, but no country has faced greater existential threat in recent years than Ukraine. It has responded with a remarkable defense and resurgent national identity. Yet, Ukraine's fertility hovers near 1 birth per woman. Azerbaijan, too, is characterized by war and issues around national identity. Its fertility is far below replacement level. So the theory here is that in order to defend yourself, Israel might be having more kids because that's the kind of environment they are used to being around, and it's safer for them to have more kids to ensure protection of their country. However, countries with similar circumstances don't follow this trend. Ukraine, we can see here, has 1.6 births per woman, and Azerbaijan 1.52. So again, way below the 2.1 that is required to ensure a stable population. And let's not forget that South Korea, the lowest fertility country in the world, lives under constant threat from the north. South Korea has 0.8 or 0.75 kids per woman. So lowest in the world, actually. Is it religion? In 2009, a Gallup poll surveyed people in different countries asking if religion is important in your daily life. By this measure, Israel's religiosity was only average compared to European countries and much less than countries like Poland and Italy, each of whom has fertility near 1 birth per woman. So let's say it says here that Israel is about an average when it comes on the religious scale to all the countries in Europe. It's not like they're overly religious and therefore religion will correlate with having more kids. It shows probably the darker blue is the more religious countries, and as you go lighter, you're probably not considered as religious. Results of a 2009 Gallup poll where the respondents said that religion was important in their daily life. By religious attendance too, Israel is unremarkable. Just 27% of Jewish people in Israel attend a religious service each week, a bit more than in the United States. Of course, religion tells part of the story of high Israeli fertility, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So being a religious society or having some sort of ties to religious practices may be part of the reason why they're having more children than maybe the rest of the world. Yes, the ultra-Orthodox in Israel have very high fertility, but they are just a small subset of the population. Fertility is high in all segments. Secular Jews in Israel have a fertility of about 2 births per woman, twice as high as the 1 birth per woman of secular Jews in the United States. So Jews in Israel have double as many kids than the ones in the United States. So this really speaks to something culturally must be happening here. We're seeing these types of results. So fertility rates in Israel, and it's broken down by the different stems of their religions. Okay, interesting. 6 kids for the hardy Jews. Okay. Is it societal services? Israel offers a variety of benefits around childbearing, from tax relief to child allowances. This is a good thing, and no doubt provides some boost to fertility. But what Israel offers in terms of benefits is pretty average compared to European societal democracies. Sweden, Germany, and South Korea all spend significant sums on pro-natal benefits, and their most recent fertility rates were 1.42, for Sweden, 1.36 for Germany, and 0.73 respectively for South Korea. So they might have similar benefits, economic benefits, for having kids. These types of benefits don't seem to be encouraging countries like Sweden, South Korea, and Germany. Getting married and having kids is the highest cultural value. This might be the reason why. Ultimately, those who live in Israel or talk to Israelis almost always arrive at the same conclusion. Israeli culture just values having children intensely. A wonderful article by Dina Kraft in the Christian Science Monitor sheds light. Israel booms babies as developed world's birth rates plummet. Here's why. Societal message. It is the intensity of its fixation on family that makes Israel different from its counterparts in Europe and the United States, argues Ellie Tiemann, a medical anthropologist and senior lecturer at Rupin College in Central Israel. In America, you are an individual who is not necessarily going to live close to your parents, but in Israel, the whole basis of society is familial, Dr. Tiemann says. The metaphor used describing the nation as one body, one family is an example of this. It often comes out when we are having a security crisis. The idea of family as a basic unit of Jewish society adds to this narrative. This is how Jews have always survived. Very much seems to be ingrained in their culture of having this family unit being super tight. The Israeli attitude towards children and families affects immigrants as well, Tiemann says. She points to the example of the wave of immigrants who came to Israel from the former Soviet Union. Those who came as adults usually had one child. By contrast, those who came as teenagers also absorbed the societal message, for the most part, gone to have 2 to 3 children. There's pressure on people here, a message that the only way to be included in society is through having children, says Tiemann. There has also been a baby boom amongst members of Israeli gay community who, through having children, have found societal acceptance that had eluded them before. That's pretty impressive. I think it's really interesting, the part here where it's like there's pressure on people to have this, because there's been such a change in the narrative now. I feel like people are very touchy about whether you can ask if somebody has kids or if they don't, or it almost comes off as an offense to ask a woman like, oh, why doesn't she have children? These days, and where that's supposed to be the most actually natural thing and as a human being to do and have. And of course, like, there's always complications and there's always these things, but it's like just having a general basic conversation about like wanting to have kids, it should be more normalized. It's crazy how it's not. Another wonderful article by Danielle Cubes in Canada's National Post offers precisely the same explanation for high Israeli fertility. Israel is positively dripping with pro-natal belief. Danielle Cubes, the truth behind Israel's curiously high fertility rates. Israel at 75. While you may be tempted to point a finger at religious Jews or Muslims for Israel's high fertility rate, that doesn't tell the whole story. When surveyed, Israelis say the ideal family size is 3, while in North America, Europe, and Australia, the ideal family size is considered to be 2. I have lots of friends in Canada who say they want to remain child-free by choice, or be one and done, but those concepts haven't yet entered into Israeli discourse. Anyone who lives here is expected to have children. Sigal Gulden, a Hebrew University sociologist, told the New York Times. In casual conversation, you will be asked how many children you have, and if you say 1, people ask why only 1, and if you say 2, why only 2? That's pretty hilarious. I love that. I think that's such an honest approach, and it's very encouraging and uplifting. I really like this way of, being able to communicate with each other with the messaging and intention of having more children, because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. The real secret to Israel's fertility rates appear to be cultural. The family is at the absolute center of Israeli life. Getting married and having kids is the highest cultural value. Any Jewish person in either Israel or the diaspora will attest to the immense pressure to marry, as if it's a great tragedy has befallen you if you have the misfortune of remaining single past 26. I think you can see it's in both lights. It's a good and bad thing. Of course, people shouldn't be pressured to get married too young either, in my opinion, but I don't see this as a horrible thing. And Israel puts its money where its pro-natalist mouth is. It's the only country to fully subsidize unlimited in vitro fertilization, IVF treatments, for all women until they are 45 or have 2 children. The policy receives little criticism despite the expense. Honestly, the first time I read this, I was so surprised. How amazing is that they actually offer fully subsidized unlimited IVF to women? That's so incredible, the fact that that's even possible. And so I even looked up do taxpayers get this? Because that's it's a very interesting approach to society and such a wonderful way to encourage people to have kids, even people who now you have no excuse. You can't even get upset if someone's I need to be careful how I say things. It makes sense now why people would ask in society, why only 2? Or why only 1 kid? The policy receives little criticism despite the expense. Society is generally pretty happy to contribute to these types of things because they see the benefits of this. If you talk to Israelis and if you visit Israel, you will arrive at the same conclusion. Israel just has far stronger pro-natal beliefs than are found in any other developed country and is the main reason its fertility is higher. Where did pro-natalism come from? We as a society need to influence each other more. It's so important how we view these things, having children and getting married and actually building these, you want to call them traditional structures, but that's some of the only ways to make a difference, like actually bringing attention and making people aware of the benefits of having kids. Where did this pronatalism come from? It was intentional. Early Israeli leaders like David Ben Gurion and Golda Meir were intensely pronatal, speaking in direct language about the importance of having children. Subsequent leaders have continued to uphold these values and have added policy support. Most of Israel has never wavered in its pronatalism. While generations around the world, and especially in East Asia, were hearing the message that the world is overpopulated, Israel kept its core belief in the value of children. A remarkable example of Israel's pronatalism. Last year, Israel's newspaper Hazard reported something which was astonishing to those of us learning about it for the first time, under the headline, "We operate 24/7. On Saturday night, October 7th, when the Israeli army had regrouped and was battling the Hamas invaders, parents of 3 young men murdered by Hamas at the Nova Music Festival arrived in an Israeli hospital. They asked the doctors to quickly perform a special sperm prevention procedure on the 3 men, who had been close friends and went together to the rave party. Israel is so pronatal that your family and hospitals will work together to make it possible for you to have children even after you've died." I don't know how I should feel about that. Like, I don't know if that's cool or if that's creepy, but I guess, like, if you're still able to have your DNA continue in this world, like, it's a crazy thought, but it's like, that's the continuation of you. So if that's what people want, why not? That's impressive that you can actually go to those lengths and measures, and it's, widely accepted. Yeah, why not? Hope for the rest of us. The fact that Israel manages high fertility in spite of many negative forces means that there's hope for every wealthy, low fertility country. Israel manages this most of all through intense belief in having children, very simply. Other countries can have that too. Israel is a perfect example that well-off country, you're highly educated, you have high prosperity, so a high-income society, you can still have it all. You can still also have children. And it only needs to come from your culture or like the society to have that sort of rhetoric or understanding and mutual encouragement of it to ensure that people have more kids. So it starts with us. It starts with every individual being like, you know what, yes, I do want kids. Yes, we should have more kids. Yes, it's only good to have more kids. And like, there isn't really any reason not to. And the fact that there's people out there telling us like, no, kids are bad for the environment, kids are bad for this XYZ, like that's just such bullshit. And we really need the right messaging moving forward, because that will make us unstoppable. Like that will make these countries so far, like it'll make them just better off. Other countries have that too if they worked at it hard enough. In August, I reported how Mongolia developed cultural pronatalism and saw birth rates soar in very different circumstances. So Mongolia is also a good example of a country with really high birth rates, and the reason how society is able to influence and push that on its people in an encouraging way. With strong pronatal beliefs, almost every headwind can be overcome. Without that, every generous government spending on families is unlikely to succeed at raising fertility that much. Interesting way to think about it. Like, you have to, you can't just throw money at a problem. You also have to show why it's being invested in. Fertility is a stack of factors, but pronatal belief matters most. So just like the belief of promoting the birth of kids, of having more kids, that's just what matters most. Having that perspective on life and the relationships you want to build, the life you want to have, the purpose for yourself, ensuring that having kids is part of that. That's what this article argues is like the biggest driver and biggest push to ensure that we have enough kids in this world and enough people to help push society forward, continue consciousness, we continue to develop and do the best for the world. I have written of the fertility stack a whole range of factors that drive fertility in this post. Israel does poorly on a number of metrics. In particular, housing is crowded and expensive, and educations are very long. Does this mean that those other factors don't matter? In fact, they do matter, and if Israel could address these things, it could have higher fertility still. Israel has high fertility for an OECD country, but its fertility is far from what is possible. I wrote about the Amish almost 2 months ago. The Amish also have strong pronatal beliefs and have shorter educations and have plenty of space and affordable housing, housing, and have plenty of economic opportunities in America. So Amish fertility is 6 births per woman. 6! Impressive. There's society there. Culture keeps going. Very cool. I don't know much about the Amish per se, but I assume there's a lot of physical labor involved, and productivity comes from human labor, a lot done by human labor, and therefore it's essential to have as many people in the household to be able to contribute to that kind of lifestyle. Risks to Israeli fertility and what Israel can do. The biggest risk to Israeli fertility going forward is if it wavers in its pro-natalism. So meaning if it, changes from these pro-natalistic having children as a positive thing beliefs. So if they maybe start getting influenced by the rest of the OECD countries. In the first month, with data showing babies born more than 9 months after October 7th, 2023, Israel reported an 8% decrease in Jewish births compared to the previous 2 years. If Israel's views of itself changes, or the intensity of its pronatalism diminishes, it could succumb to low, same fertility that threatens every other developed country. While other countries need to learn Israel's strong pro-child ethos, Israel needs to work hard to maintain it in order for them to continue the way they are doing, which is very positive and in a fertility perspective, that they should ensure to maintain what they've had all this time and hopefully not get discouraged or follow kind of what its neighboring countries, not neighboring countries, but its other because this is actually something that they are doing, which is a very positive way to see how a society can function. The second biggest risk to Israeli fertility going forward is housing. Israel's crowding and house prices are extreme. Israeli fertility would no doubt be higher without this constraint, but southern Israel is not crowded. Even tiny Israel has room to grow, and it will need that space in the decades to come, having just passed 10 million in its population last month. Yeah, Israel is actually a really small country. I actually realized after reading this article. Very interesting. So what this article really shows me is that fertility isn't just biology. It's values. Israel made having kids a core cultural norm, and most Western countries have done the opposite. Israel is able to stay above replacement level even with expensive housing and long education, war, all of the above. That means our problem in the West is clearly not money or convenience. It's what we actually believe about kids and the type of lives we want to lead. It's really important we have the right narrative and the right approach and the right mindset, or else we're just kind of going to age out. But if you like this, leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts, or do you have a completely different opinion, another way of thinking about this? Thanks for watching this time. See you next time. Oh my god, the sun just came out right on my face. You know what? This is cute. Alright, I can't really see my screen, and the point is I'm supposed to be reading this. What am I supposed to do with the sun this strong? I honestly don't know how shit this looks.